Anna, a 30-year-old woman, returned home to pick up the last of her belongings. But instead of a normal goodbye, what she saw came as a shock. In front of the garage hung a large banner with a mocking message: "Goodbye, freeloader. Don't come back." The atmosphere felt like a party, with music, laughter, and the smell of grilled food in the air. But it was all meant to humiliate her. Family members and neighbors gathered around, throwing out cruel, sarcastic remarks. Some criticized her, saying it was shameful to still rely on her family at 30. Others laughed, claiming the family had supported her long enough. At one point, someone even threw a sausage at her car as a mean-spirited joke. But what hurt Anna the most wasn't the act itself. It was the fact that everyone seemed to believe what they were saying was true. Despite the harsh insults, Anna didn't react. She didn't cry, argue, or try to explain herself. She simply walked into the house, picked up her last box, and came back out. Before leaving, she took a photo of the banner and the mocking faces around her. Then she got into her car and drove away in silence, as if everything had ended, when in reality, it was only the beginning. The story Anna's family told others was simple, easy to understand, and full of judgment. They painted her as a failed 30-year-old woman with no clear career, someone who had to move back in with her father after a broken marriage. In their eyes, the fact that Anna worked on her computer from home didn't count as a real job, but rather as a sign of laziness and a lack of direction. This version of the story quickly spread through family gatherings, backyard parties, and even on social media. People were quick to believe it, because believing it made them feel better, more successful, more put together. Phrases like "tough love works" or "this is how she'll grow up" were repeated over and over, as if forcing Anna out of the house was the right and necessary thing to do. What's striking is that no one actually tried to verify the truth. Her family repeated the story so many times that they eventually started to believe it themselves. In their eyes, Anna was no longer a person with her own circumstances. She became a negative example, a cautionary tale to teach others. The truth was completely buried. No one mentioned what Anna had actually done, her quiet contributions, or the real reason she had returned to live with her family. The story people believed wasn't the truth. It was a distorted version shaped to serve her family's image and ego. The truth was completely different from what Anna's family had been telling everyone. She was never a freeloader like they claimed. In reality, Anna worked remotely as a freelance records coordinator and operations consultant for small businesses. Her job required attention to detail, strong organizational skills, and the ability to solve problems on the fly, and most importantly, it provided her with a stable income. It didn't stop there. During the 3 years she lived with her family, Anna quietly helped her father's company get through multiple crises. She handled paperwork errors, managed contracts, tracked payments, and even used her own money at times to keep the business running when things got tough. The total value of her contributions and the risks she helped prevent exceeded $112,000, a significant amount that her family never once acknowledged. What's heartbreaking is that all of her efforts were treated as if they didn't exist, simply because her work wasn't visible by her family's standards. Anna worked in silence, solving problems behind the scenes, yet in the end, she was labeled as useless. If you were Anna, what would you do in this situation? Leave a comment 1 if you think she endured this for too long and should have walked away sooner. Despite everything she contributed to her family, Anna never received the recognition she deserved. Instead, she was constantly dismissed, as if all her efforts were simply expected. Her father never introduced her as the person who helped the company survive difficult times. He would casually say she was just figuring things out. Whenever Anna solved a major problem, he downplayed it, sometimes even turning it into a joke in front of others. In her family's eyes, Anna's work had no value simply because it was done on a computer and didn't involve physical labor. They believed that if the effort wasn't visibly exhausting, then it wasn't real work. That mindset made all of her contributions effectively invisible. It wasn't just her father. Other family members gradually adopted the same perspective. Her younger sister mimicked the dismissive attitude to gain attention and approval from their father. Her uncle, while dependent on the company, continued to make sarcastic remarks. Her aunt masked harsh judgment behind moral advice, making it seem like concern when it was actually criticism. Together, it created a toxic family system where respect wasn't based on truth, but on power and the loudest voice. In that environment, Anna wasn't just taken for granted. She became a target for others to project their frustrations and assert themselves. The turning point came when Anna accidentally overheard a conversation between her father, her uncle, and a neighbor. He said he was considering giving her 90 days to move out, as a way to teach her a lesson and force her to grow up. But what shocked Anna wasn't just the plan, it was the way they laughed about it, treating the idea of pushing her to the edge like some kind of entertainment. In that moment, something inside her shifted completely. Anna no longer felt hurt or the need to explain herself. Instead, she began to see everything with a cold clarity. She realized that no matter how hard she tried, her family would never acknowledge the truth. In their eyes, she would always be the one in the wrong, and they would always find a way to prove it. Rather than confronting them or arguing, Anna chose a different path. She quietly began gathering evidence of everything she had done over the years. Every dollar she had contributed, every time she stepped in to help the company, every message and phone call where her family asked for her support. She documented it all carefully, clearly, and systematically. For Anna, this wasn't about revenge. It was the only way to protect her truth. Because she understood that in a family where words could be twisted at any moment, evidence was the only thing that couldn't be denied. After seeing everything clearly, Anna began planning her exit, quietly but decisively. She secured a long-term contract with a client in Colorado, stable enough to help her rebuild her life. But instead of telling her family, she chose silence. She understood that in an environment where every decision she made was judged and obstructed, silence was her best protection. Anna rented a small storage unit near the highway and started moving her belongings little by little. Each week, just a few things: winter clothes, books, personal items, work equipment. It all happened so gradually and discreetly that no one in the family noticed. Valuable items or anything she had purchased herself were moved first, to avoid them being withheld or used against her at the last minute. At the same time, she carefully prepared her finances and work. Anna slowly withdrew the support she had been quietly providing to the family and the business. Payment accounts, services, and expenses she had been covering were all reviewed and put under her control, ready to be cut off at any moment. When her father officially told her to leave, Anna simply agreed without protest. But in reality, she was already far ahead of them. Everything had been perfectly set in motion. If you were in this situation, would you choose to leave quietly like Anna? Comment 1 if you think this is the smartest way to protect yourself. After Anna left, everything began to fall apart rapidly, in ways no one in the family had anticipated. The small issues she used to handle quietly all surfaced at once. Within just a few days, her father's company descended into serious chaos. A permit application was rejected because the insurance paperwork had expired, and no one renewed it in time. The project management software was suddenly locked due to an unpaid bill, causing all data, orders, schedules, and materials to disappear from the system. Expenses like electricity, vehicle insurance, and other services also started going overdue, triggering a cascade of shut-off warnings. The people who once looked down on Anna began to panic. Her phone was flooded with calls and messages from her father, uncle, and younger sister, begging her to come back and help. At first, their tone was still demanding, but it quickly shifted to pleading, and eventually to fear, as everything spiraled out of control. They no longer mentioned her being a freeloader. The only thing they cared about now was getting everything back to the way it was. But this time, Anna didn't respond. Her silence became the most frightening thing for them. Because for the first time, they had to face the consequences on their own, without anyone quietly fixing things behind the scenes. As things continued to worsen, Anna decided she wouldn't stay completely silent anymore. But she also didn't reveal everything at once. Instead, she chose to expose the truth piece by piece, starting with her younger sister. When she was accused of not contributing anything to the family, Anna simply sent a screenshot. a small part of the records she had prepared in advance. It showed a list of expenses over several months, the money she had put into her father's company, shared living costs, and even the amounts she had transferred directly to her sister. There were no long explanations, no arguments, just clear, cold numbers that couldn't be denied. At first, her sister reacted with irritation, not fully understanding what she was seeing. But the more she looked, the more she realized that the story the family had believed for so long wasn't true at all. Every payment, every act of support, it was all documented in detail, organized, and impossible to dismiss. The family's reaction began to shift. Their attitude moved from dismissive to confused and unsettled. Anna's father kept calling, but this time his tone was no longer commanding. It was urgent, anxious. Still, one thing hadn't changed. He had yet to offer a genuine apology. Anna knew this was only the beginning. The truth, even revealed in fragments, was enough to shake the entire narrative her family had built. And this time, she was no longer the subject of the story. She was the one controlling how it was told. The confrontation between Anna and her father took place at a public restaurant, just as she had deliberately arranged. There was no longer any private space to hide or twist the truth. This time, everything had to be faced openly. Anna placed a 31-page document on the table, everything she had quietly recorded over the years. Inside were concrete numbers, financial contributions, transfer records, messages asking for her help, and a full account of the work she had done to keep the company from collapsing. Everything was organized logically and clearly, without emotion. Just facts. When her father opened it and saw the total amount, he immediately reacted, accusing her of exaggerating. But as he flipped through each page, his initial confidence began to fade. When he could no longer deny it, he fell back on a familiar argument: family shouldn't keep score. Anna calmly replied that when she lived under his roof, he called it freeloading, but when he benefited from her help, he called it family. She didn't ask for money or demand compensation. Anna said only one thing: she had done her part, and now she was done. Do you think Anna went too far? Comment 1 if you think she was simply standing up for fairness. After the confrontation, things didn't settle down the way Anna's family had hoped. In fact, they continued to get worse. Without Anna working behind the scenes to quietly fix everything, the cracks in the company's operations became impossible to ignore. Clients started leaving, suppliers tightened their payment terms, and mistakes that once would have been quickly handled were now left unresolved. Financial pressure quickly spread throughout the entire family. Mounting expenses, unstable work, and a growing sense of chaos pushed everything into a downward spiral. Eventually, they were forced to make a major decision: sell the house, the place that had once been the center of their family life. The house wasn't put on the market because they wanted change, but because they had no other choice. It sold for less than they had hoped, marking the end of a period they once believed was secure. Each family member had to figure things out on their own. The aunt moved in with relatives, the uncle lost his support system, and Anna's father relocated to a smaller place while struggling to keep the company afloat. What's striking is that even with everything laid bare, her father still didn't fully admit his mistakes. He continued to shift the blame, claiming that Anna's departure was what caused everything to fall apart. But Anna understood one thing clearly: she wasn't the cause of the collapse. She was simply the one who stopped holding it together. After leaving her family, Anna began building an entirely new life in Colorado. At first, everything felt unfamiliar, but the quiet helped her realize the value of a life free from constant pressure and judgment. Her first contract quickly led to more opportunities, as satisfied clients referred her to new partners. From working as a solo freelancer, Anna gradually turned her work into a more professional system. She founded her own company, set clear rules for payments and work boundaries, and no longer tolerated being taken advantage of. With a stable income, she was able to rent a better apartment, buy her own car, and become fully financially independent. More importantly, Anna started learning how to enjoy a normal life, something she had rarely experienced before. Quiet dinners without arguments or pressure brought her a sense of relief. At first, that kind of peace felt unfamiliar, since she had been so used to constantly solving problems for others. Over time, Anna came to understand that peace isn't a luxury, it's something she deserves. She no longer needed her family's approval to prove her worth. For the first time, she was living for herself, with clear boundaries and a life no longer dependent on anyone else. Anna's story doesn't end with revenge, but with a powerful lesson about self-worth and boundaries. For years, she was labeled a freeloader, yet the truth was the complete opposite. She was the one quietly carrying the entire family. It wasn't until she left that everything began to come to light. Anna realized there's a huge difference between being loved and being used. Her family only needed her as long as she provided value, money, effort, and even her silence. The moment she stopped giving those things, they panicked, not because they lost a loved one, but because they lost a source of support they had taken for granted. The biggest lesson Anna learned is this: sacrifice doesn't always lead to appreciation. Sometimes, the more you give without boundaries, the more you're overlooked. And sometimes, walking away isn't selfish, it's the only way to protect yourself. Anna didn't go back to save her family again. Instead, she chose to build a life where she is respected, fairly compensated, and no longer taken for granted. Do you think Anna should help her family one more time? Comment 1 if you think she made the right choice by walking away and not looking back.